Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to mismapasion, and the Champions League mirror matches have been completed with some mirror results to commemorate the occasion. So let's take a look at all the action that took place on game week 4. We start off in Germany as a means of getting done with the most obvious outcomes from Wednesday out of the way first, as Wolfsburg saw off Galatasaray 5 goals to 0, with the returning Alexandra Popp making her presence felt with a hat-trick against the Turkish outfit to keep their hopes of qualifying to the next round alive and well, especially considering the outcome of the game between Olympique Lyonnais and Roma, which we will take a look at later on in the video, but a dominant victory by the Bundesliga Giants to start us off as we jet off to England next. The second match of Wednesday's action takes us to West London, where WSL champions Chelsea were looking for qualification to the knockouts, but standing in their way was the Celtic side, who last time out had their number despite Chelsea being victorious in the end. This time round, there would be no rub of the green or the same kind of audaciousness from Celtic, as the hosts dog walked the hoops, and their dominance was on full display right from the first whistle, as shown by Lucy Bronze, who opened the scoring just 70 seconds into the match. Clearly, Sonia Pompastor and her players and her coaching staff had done their due diligence and their homework as well to make sure that there would be no shocks or surprises by Celtic. Vicky Captain would be the one to double the lead 20 or so odd minutes later, before Eve Periset's cameo off the bench yielded a goal from the spot to round out a standard victory for Chelsea that sees them into the knockout stages of the Champions League. The penultimate game of Wednesday's action takes us to the Netherlands, where FC Twente returned home to the Krolsfest, where they looked to improve on their dropping at the hands of Real Madrid last week, whilst the Merengues themselves were in the hunt for a win that would secure qualification to the knockouts alongside Chelsea, which was for only the second time in their fledgling history. Real Madrid's history, that is, not Chelsea, just for clarification's sake. The visitors did not have things go the way they wanted to, like they did last week, as Twente had taken a lot of notes themselves and were not allowing themselves to be picked apart, as they were very staunch and well-drilled in defense, whilst also pulling off a few attacking plays that did a lot to get the crowd behind them more and more as the match progressed. Twente's revamped game plan would soon pay dividends in the 28th minute, as Jamie Ravensbergen, I hope I pronounced her name correctly, would poke the ball in from a free kick delivery to hand the home side the deserved lead, which definitely did well to rattle Madrid. To their credit, Real Madrid took the concession rather well and did not rush themselves to get back into the game, as it was also still in the first half, and this patient approach eventually yielded dividends, as their latest besieging of the 20 goal in extra time yielded a goal from none other than Linda Caicedo, who got a rub of the green herself as the goalie's parry deflected into her waiting arms to level for the Madridistas. The second half followed the same script, with both sides going at each other, with Madrid now beginning to exert more of their dominance, which, to their credit, Twente were more than ready to counter against it, as their defense held very firm against the likes of both Ver and Brun. As the clock ticked along, Twente looked to be tiring more and more, with Madrid beginning to capitalize on this, especially with Linda Caicedo again making the magic happen for her team, as she cut in to beat two defenders before squaring the ball to Signa Brun, who made no mistake as Madrid were in front for the first time in the game. Down but not out, Twente continued the good fight to the bitter end and actually managed to get themselves a goal back that was ultimately nothing more than the consolation, given that substitute Alba Redondo had scored prior to make it 3-2 in favor of Madrid come the final whistle to secure qualification to the knockout stage, which was really earned the hard way, as Twente arguably turned out properly for the first time in the Champions League season, or campaign in this sense, in this game in particular. France was the final stop in Wednesday's action, with Lyon taking on Roma, with qualification yet again being on the line, this time for the former side. I'm happy to report that the two sides renewed hostilities almost immediately, as the action was palpable and intense almost right from the word go. Both teams had their chances early on to do some damage, but some errant finishing along some solid defensive performances prevented that from occurring, with credit going to Roma, who were markedly improved so far in comparison to their performances last week, despite more than a few close calls that almost saw them concede yet again, with particular mention having to go to the point-blank effort at the end of the first half that was scuppered by Melchi Dumornay, which on any other day she would have definitely punished her opposition. The second half continued like how the first ended, with Lyon on top but Roma holding steady nevertheless, in large part thanks to keeper Cesar. Neither side looked like they were willing to give an inch, and it looked like it was going to end in a stalemate, but some key substitutions would soon tip the scales as Italian starlet Giulia Dragoni lashed home the opener to hand Roma the lead after a pristine cross from Thorgerson, which is honestly an exceptional way of announcing yourself in the Champions League, I must say. And if Dragoni's goal was good, then Lyon's response would be even better, as whether it was complacency or fatigue that had set in after all their defensive actions throughout the night, Roma suddenly collapsed in no less than 5 minutes, as another substitute would make their mark, as Kadidiatu Diani would score not once but twice, both from corners to put Lyon ahead. Diani would be the headlights to Roma's deer yet again in the final minutes of the game, as she assisted fellow substitute Eugenie Le Sommer to take Lyon's tally to 3 before yet another corner saw Roma capitulate, but this time due to the towering might of Wendy Renard, who headed home to round off Lyon's successful comeback to secure qualification into the knockouts, leaving Roma with a lot of work to do if they themselves want to see themselves qualify for the knockouts alongside the French champions. Stay tuned for more when it comes to this group, because it is going to definitely most likely be a photo finish between Roma and Wolfsburg for the remaining spot in qualifications. Hammarby welcome Manchester City, who put it on repeat. We're looking for qualification into the knockouts for the first time in 3 years. The objective was clear for the visitors, but the home team was not going to let them reach the promised land so easily, as Hammarby built on their prior performance and were more aggressive, which did help to throw City in for a loop in the opening stages of the match. Despite their general proficiency, the Sky Blues struggled to really clamp down on the tenacity of Hammarby, which ironically would come to bite the Swedes in the final third of the first half, as Bunny Shaw was in rare form with an excellent strike from outside the box, which, despite taking a deflection, went on through into the top corner to hand City the lead. The aftermath of this goal yielded some sizable controversy, as Shaw became the victim of objects getting thrown at her, with most likely what looked like a coin, I'm not sure, actually making contact with her. And to be fair to both sides, she did initially celebrate in front of the home fans, but not with any malicious intent, as she admittedly did cool her festivities when she realized who she was facing. I think it was poor sportsmanship personally from the Hammarby fans, and foremost, it was also poor from the referee, who cautioned Shaw with the yellow for her celebrations, and was not the greatest moment for the referee, all things considered. But anyway, back to the game, and City were a goal up in the second half, but they would not be able to enjoy it for much longer, as Hammarby came back roaring with their aforementioned tenacity, resulting in a great goal from Vangerheim against the run of play, which sent the stadium into a frenzy. This furore looked like it was well on its way to provide even more joy for Hammarby, but Gareth Taylor's team had a bucket of ice-cold water, which soon dampened the mood just 4 minutes later, as Shaw would get her second of the game and celebrate more freely this time in front of her team's fans. So, all things considered, it was good that she at least got hers in the end. The game would finally end 2-1 to City, with not much else going on in the match that did already pan out pretty much in the week before, which you can hear about in the last Champions League video that I made, plug, as City would seal their spot in the knockouts with this well-earned and speaking of qualification, Barcelona moved one step closer to doing the same for themselves, as despite fielding a heavily rotated squad, the Catalan supremacy was too much for St. Paul to handle, as the current WCL holders ran out dominant 4-1 victors against the beleaguered Austrian side. Kika and Nasre, in particular alongside Vicky Lopez, made their minutes count very well, as they both got themselves on the score sheet, with the former getting a brace and the latter getting one for herself. With 9 points in the bank, Barcelona need just one more point to secure qualification, but if we're being honest, they've already qualified. It's just really a formality at this point. The penultimate game of match day 4's action was honestly a dead rubber and a really uneventful match, as we journeyed to Norway, where recrowned league champions Vålerenga welcomed a extensively changed Bayern Munich side. Admittedly, the changed Bayern side allowed for Vålerenga to be far more competitive in this game, as I would argue that they had the lion's share of good opportunities to get themselves a goal, with Stålen Godo in particular getting arguably the best chances of the game, with 2 point-blank opportunities being stopped by the German defense. Despite some changes in the second half, Bayern continued playing in second gear, as qualification for them was all but guaranteed, so long as they did not lose this match, which almost came to pass in moments, such as when Tefton joined Lauren Hemp in the double post challenge, as her shot beat the keeper but ricocheted off both sides of the post without crossing the line to get a goal. The plotting affair would finally get itself a goal with Jovana Damjanovic coming off the bench to glide the ball from a short distance to beat the keeper and bring Bayern closer to the finish line. It would be a close call for the Bavarians though, as Valerenga would draw one back courtesy of Thorsens, who headed home from a corner, which motivated the home team to try and defy the odds to get more than just a point out of this match, but time and Bayern's defensive solidity would prevent that from happening, as the match would end in a draw to see the Bundesliga champions qualify in the knockouts. North London would be the final stop for the mirror match week, with Arsenal hosting Juventus in arguably the game with the most stakes so far in the Champions League, as the Gunners were looking for a win to qualify to the knockouts, whilst Juventus needed to prevent a loss in order to stay in contention themselves. With so much on the line, the match was quite cagey as you'd expect, with Juventus not wanting to make a mistake defensively, whilst Arsenal were enjoying possession of the ball but with not too much to show for it, given the aforementioned staunchness from Juventus. Despite being frustrated regularly by the visitors, Arsenal were proving their worth, as time and again the Gunners were in clear sight of goal, which was to some extent due to a lot of mistakes individually from Juventus that Arsenal did not sufficiently punish, at least in my opinion. And just like their previous game, there would be some refereeing controversy, as Caitlin Ford was taken down in the box and Arsenal demanded a penalty like anyone would, but in all honesty, she kind of went down a bit too easily, but it's one of those calls that can go either way depending on the referee on the day. As time continued to tick away nevertheless, Arsenal amplified their attacking prowess in their attempts to break Juventus down in a meaningful way that would yield a goal, and it was not for a lack of trying. Juventus, for their part, were flourishing under their defensive rigidity and on the rare occasion would even find themselves on the end of an attacking opportunity, but luck would be on their side at times, admittedly, as Arsenal really should have put them to the sword. Said luck though would not be there in its entirety, as it would eventually run out, as after trying time and again, substitute Lina Hurtig would finally tap home into an empty net to secure the goal to give Arsenal the victory required to see them through to the knockouts in what was an incredible clash between two very good sides, but ultimately there was only one clear winner come the final whistle. And with the conclusion of match day 4, here are the current group standings, with groups B, C, and D all but wrapped up, with Barcelona being the only team of the 6 that needs to rubber stamp their passage into the knockouts, which would take a biblical miracle for that to not happen, and Group A still being all to play for, with Roma and Wolfsburg, who oddly enough will be facing each other in match week 5, so there's still a lot to be excited about, all things considered, in the remaining 2 game weeks of the Champions League. But for now, that will do it for the coverage of match week 4. What matches really stood out the most for you, and who do you think will get that last spot in Group A? Personally, I think it might be Roma, but Wolfsburg, they could just pull a surprise out of nowhere, but we will see. Leave your thoughts on all this and anything else in the comment section below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.